Hello, everybody. How's everyone doing on this Saturday evening? Where I'm at, it's freaking cold. Where Kurt and Anthony are at, it's not so bad. So, this is Chat with Al. We're on pretty early because I have two distinguished guests, co-hosts, hosts. Kurt Bergland, Mr. Baseball, the new Mr. Baseball. And then Anthony Crooks from Glory Days Boxing and Glory Days Sports Sim Universe. How are you gentlemen doing? We'll start with Anthony first because his name starts with an A. And A is the first letter of the alphabet. And A is what you're supposed to strive for in school. Anthony, how you doing, my friend?
I never did, though, so if you went by grades, I would be going last. Especially with a teacher in the chat with us. I'm doing good, man. Enjoying the football, and I did a preview fight earlier, so yeah, just having a relaxing Saturday.
Yes, and we'll be talking about that in a little bit as we have some luminaries in the chat. Let me say hello to PJet. Hello to SDG Replays, Big Polly, Worlds of Sports Sim, and of course, Uncle Dave Gardner. Mr. Kurt, how are you? Now, Kurt, what's the weather like where you're at, Kurt?
Well, it is 81 degrees. There is a gentle breeze out of the north, but not a cold breeze. It's just very pleasant. And this is about as close to paradise, I think, as
okay, we're kicking Kurt out of the chat right now.
What's that?
We're gonna kick you off the stream because you're just having way too much fun with that good weather.
I don't blame you. It's wonderful. It's just amazing. So my first time here, and it's incredible.
How long are you there for?
There we go. About another month.
So, oh, nice. Enjoy.
Yeah. He did a really cool video. A really cool video of he was at a baseball stadium. We have there's a little feedback coming from somewhere, but we'll work through it. I can hear it. I don't think it's on my end, but that's fine. We have some more people in the chat here. I just want to say hello to Main Event Bears Den 007. Thank you for joining us. And Philip Reynolds did a Fast Drive football replay. I'll be checking out later. So if anyone, yeah, I can hear it too. I don't know what it is. We're gonna have to bear with it. Don Heston, how you doing? So, Anthony.
Yes.
New set coming out for Glory Days Boxing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it'll be a supplemental set, a mixed set like the first one, and really what it does is it fills in. Well, the two things I'm excited about with it is it introduces super middleweights.
Yeah.
So it opens up some potential there to like replay a Super Six like I'm doing, and it's got some of the guys who participated in that, Carl Froch, Mikkel Kessler, etc. And then also it re-rates some fighters in different divisions. There's two re-rates. Canelo I re-rated a little better at middleweight, and then Josh Warrington a little worse. And then it puts together, I guess, some potential dream matchups because there's a Roberto Duran welterweight and middleweight card that are official now. Also a Tommy Hearns and Sugar Ray Leonard middleweight card, so you can do the Four Kings. And even if you want to take Floyd Mayweather Jr. back down to lightweight and fight him against Duran, there's going to be a Mayweather lightweight card now. So a lot of additions there, or re-rates that open up some more matchups. And then really just filling in the other 60 fighters in the set, kind of filling in some mid to high level contenders and a couple of alphabet soup champions. So there's another 10, 12 heavyweights in there, including an official Andy Ruiz Jr. card. The fighter that you requested, Joe Baxi.
Very excited. Very excited about that.
And some other guys from like 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, like Michael Bent, who of course upset Tommy Morrison, Larry Donald, Kirby Hyde, etc. And then
strange
it just
things
fills
happen
in
to
a
the
few
four
lighter guys.
on the way. Michael Bent, when he knocked out Tommy Morrison, next fight was going to be a mega payday against Lennox Lewis. He decided to take a tune-up like a moron. And
well, and for that fight, he spent more time in the bar training than he did the gym, so we expected an early knockout.
What I remember about that fight was on ESPN, and Morrison actually had Bent hurt on the ropes, and he was going for the kill, and Bent winged a punch and caught Tommy, and it was all over. So Arnold Hunter says that's what makes Glory Days Boxing the best on the market. Tremendous game, tremendous value, tremendous fun. You know, I just want to talk about the game engine real quick. What I like about the game engine, now, is every game perfect? Everyone's always trying to pick apart a game, right? What I like about Glory Days Boxing game engine, it probably takes, if someone was a novice to the sport or the game, obviously if you buy the game, it's new to you. I think if you played 2 matches, you have it like that. Because the engine, everything's smooth. The majority of your results come off the cards. It's right here. There's one chart, and that's the what's the chart? I call it the crazy chart, but you know,
event chart,
rare event chart, and event chart, and then the other little charts, they're all right here. You know, you can't go wrong if you're. It just flows. We've talked about it many a times on the channel. It flows. It flows really, really well.
Well, you know, and really what I shot for there is boxing's such a subjective sport anyway. There's no way to accurately rate everybody by a statistical formula like you can do with a baseball game. You know, so the big, I guess, go-to or wish for there was just to make it as realistic as possible while being easy to play and still flexible, so you can do house rolls and that type of thing too as a player.
Absolutely. Kurt, I think we're having issues with your sound because when I mute you, I don't get the feedback, but that's fine. Do you hear, because some people say they hear a crunching or a fish tank kind of sound.
Yeah, I'm hearing it too, but I don't know how to stop that.
No, that's fine. Don't worry about it. So when Anthony was talking, excuse me, I just muted you to get rid of it. But now, so Kurt, tell us about we know about your channel, Mr. Baseball. I like to call you that. Congrats on over 1,000 subs. Anthony, you're pretty close. You're getting there. Anthony's getting there too. So tell us why you do so much for the community, showing off books and games, because it's a marvelous job.
Well, it's fun, and it's nice to be able to try and save people a few dollars to make sure that they're getting a game that they really want, and people seem to appreciate that, so that's a lot of fun for me too. I have in the last, I don't know, couple of months, I've reignited my fascination with Japanese baseball, and so this year I'm writing a book. And it's going to be an English language book about the history, past and present, about Japanese baseball and the NPB, and try and make it accessible for the American consumer. I don't know if we're going to be having baseball. I don't think we are going to be having baseball on time this year, but we may not be having baseball for quite a while. And of course, the NPB is going to be playing, and so I'm very motivated to get this book going, and I've created some card sets for compatible with APA, and that folks can reach out to me about if they would like to, and
they would email you.
What's that?
They would email you regarding those sets.
Right. Just send me an email at bergland.kurt@yahoo.com. And what I'm doing with the book is right now kind of getting it organized and deciding how I want to go about publishing. And while I'm doing that, and my youngest daughter is helping me with that, and
Oh, cool.
And I'm burying myself in research, and so just trying to figure out how to get things organized and get the information. First of all, research, but then written up in a way that people are going to like. And I'm hoping that later this year, or maybe early 2023, it'll be done and available for people to read. My motivation for doing it is because I wanted to learn more about the NPB and international baseball, and I wanted to learn more about the current players, but also the history of the game in Japan. And there's a few books that are out there, and there's a few websites that are out there, but the vast majority of it, you really, really, really have to read Japanese to be able to tear apart. And I don't. So,
well, most people might know like Sahandra O. That's the name I know. Ichiro and those guys, but you had also said, excuse me, because I'm a voracious watcher of your channel as well as Anthony's channel. You had said that you wanted to explain the way the game, or if I understood you correctly, you wanted to explain the way the game is played. And could you touch just a little bit on that, Kurt? Like,
yes, there's a cultural, even though the game has existed in Japan for 150 years, there's this cultural connection with the game, and so World War II obviously had a huge impact on the development of the game. Their dead ball period ended in 1950. Our dead ball period ended in 1920, but the learning curve, the coaching curve, the distances for fences, the ballparks themselves, where the game is played, all of that is very, very different. And even today, even though there are players that are going from, well, Cuba and Venezuela and the United States to play as foreigners in Japan, the game is very different in Japan. And in fact, I just came across some data today where there's a study done about the 3 true outcomes of baseball: the walk, the strikeout, and home run, and how that number has now hit 36% for Major League Baseball. That 36% of your outcomes are either a strikeout, a walk, or a home run.
And that makes for a pretty boring baseball game at times.
Well, it does. And what's interesting is that
now you said 36%.
Japanese game are very different, and that the Japanese game just barely gets to 30% right now. And their whole way of teaching, which doesn't sound like a lot, but 6% of your at bats makes a big difference. And it goes to kind of the way that they're taught, the way that they look at data and sabermetrics is different, and the way that young players are taught is different. And so there's some similarities, of course, but there's a lot of differences in the game and the way it's played and the way it's taught that I just find fascinating. And the more I read, the more interested I get. And so the game itself, on an international scale, is better in Japan, is stronger in Japan than it's ever been. The best players in Japan are better. There are more of them, and they are at a higher level than they've ever been in history of the Japanese game. And that means that internationally, Japanese teams get stronger and stronger and stronger. It doesn't mean they don't lose, but it does mean that the quality of play is getting better, and that
getting better.
I think is going to fuel more and more it's a little bit complicated because of the posting system, but the way that a Japanese player has to kind of play the game to be able to get to the major leagues is it's not a very player-friendly system. But having said that, the talent level of these players is getting to the point where there's going to be more and more of them making a bigger and bigger impact on Major League Baseball going forward. If they choose to go, then I think that, there's been a player here and a player there, and sometimes there's a splash and sometimes there's not. But I think there's really a pipeline going now of players at a very high level and achieving big success at a very young age. And so some of the 12 teams.
How long do they have to play with the team they sign in Japan before they can?
There's two ways they can go. If they play 10 years, which is what Ichiro did, they can just go. If they don't, then the team has to agree to post them, and posting makes them eligible for a fee, of course.
Right, for a money fee.
But posting makes them eligible to go to the major leagues, and that can happen earlier if the team agrees to it. Now, some of the 12 teams in the NPB are more receptive to posting than others. Obviously, if you have a wealthier team, they're not going to be so swayed by the lucrative.
No, because they're making money already.
But the poorer teams aren't interested in that, and so it's a much more difficult decision in those cases for those teams because the money is real, and they need the money, but they're also losing obviously a very, very talented player. So potentially
it's a catch-22 because you're going to lose a popular player, you're going to make quick money, a lot of money probably, but in the long run, unless you develop other popular players. Quick thing, Kurt. Todd B writes, I brought up Randy Bass over on your channel. I remember a great article about him in Sports Illustrated years ago. I'm assuming he jumped to the Japanese league.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way that foreign players in Japan are regarded tends to vary a lot. But Randy Bass had a fairly lengthy career. I want to say 6 years, 6 seasons. And the problem that
was he an outfielder for the Houston Astros? Am I thinking of the right guy?
He played for the Giants too, right?
That's a different guy. Randy Bass was he did play some outfield, but his position was designated hitter. He was a first baseman, left-handed hitter, big-time power in Japan. I think he had a couple, 3 clubs that he was trying to catch on with in the United States, and it didn't work out. His son got very, very sick and needed a surgery, and actually brain surgery. And the team that he was with in Japan had promised to take care of his medical bills and take care of his insurance. And they reneged on that. But Randy Bass had been smart enough to record the conversation, and he had it recorded, and he released it to the Japanese media. And what happened after that was that the general manager of the team that reneged on the deal committed suicide because of the embarrassment that this tape recording showed that he was backing out on this deal. So the whole, first of all, Randy Bass, amazing player. He won the Triple Crown in Japan. Depending upon how you regard foreign play and a little bit shorter career in Japan, he's clearly a top, I would say, 5 to 7 first baseman in their history.
In their history.
Put him at 2 right behind Sadahara. I've seen him as high as 2. I've seen him a little bit lower. But his peak was certainly phenomenal. And then he came back to the United States and served in the Congress, I want to say, for a Western state, maybe Montana, Wyoming, something like that. Someone probably remembers in the chat, but
I never heard of that. And it was Kevin Bass I was thinking of.
You were thinking, right?
They mentioned the chat. So wow, that's
right.
So. When you thinking 2023 for the?
I'm hoping before the end of the calendar year, but
of this year. Excellent.
It's going to be a year, but I'm having a great time with it, and I'm learning a lot about it all the time. Watching a lot of video, reading a lot of stuff, and it's just it's reignited my interest in current baseball, and I needed it, and so hopefully it can be a help to others as well.
No, it sounds, and Todd says very interesting story. I never knew that. Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Kurt.
There really is a dearth of information about Japanese, and even for me, and you can tell me if you agree, Kurt. When I watch Japanese and even Korean baseball, it's almost like watching the game I watched as a kid in the 70s. It's more technically sound. They play some small ball. It's just not all launch angle and velo and all that stuff. It's here now. It doesn't do the game favors.
Yeah. The thing that lost me with baseball this year was you had the stat. You said 36% strikeout, walk, or a home run. That's playing wiffle ball in a weird way. And I don't want to watch wiffle ball. I enjoy base stealing, which no one does anymore. I enjoy an occasional hit and run. I enjoy an occasional walk or a single, and you bunt the guy over. You steal second, you bunt him over to third. You don't do that all the time.
The most exciting play in baseball, the triple. I mean, come on now.
And Smelly Wrestling Geek says, the last 3 innings are the only innings to watch in baseball, in my opinion. You know what's funny about that? They talk about basketball. People go, you just got to watch the last 4 or 5 minutes of basketball. And now, what it's become with baseball, oddly, it's similar in a way, because basketball is now all about a 3-point shooting contest with defenders. Don't get me wrong, right? And it's not fun for me to watch because they don't work the ball down low. They don't kick it back out. They don't. And baseball is heading down a very scary slope, in my opinion, where, and again, the stat, 36%, Kurt had the numbers, walk, strikeout, or homer. That's boring. That's boring to me. I love strikeouts. I love homers, and walks are walks. That's fine. But when they're all swing. We looked up a stat on Babe Ruth, myself and Chris Anderson at work, right? Because he struck out quite a bit, right? But he walked a ton too. Then we look like Joe DeMont, and again, I'm not saying who's greater eras, this and that, because that's the other where you can't compare. Yeah, you can. You can, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. Because if you're going to compare an era, are they going to go back and play that way, or are these guys moving forward and they're going to play with the nutrition, the exercise schedule? I don't have to work another job. Now, some people, they didn't really work another. Well, they were salesmen. They had to do something else.
Well, it's like. I'm a huge dead ball nut, and players from back then, like on the Tigers, on Cobb's Tigers, Davy Jones, one of the other outfielders, had a drugstore across from the stadium. So you could go watch him play and then swing over to his drugstore for a soda, and he might be the guy serving you because he would go over there and work.
Well, and again, like even up until probably the late 70s, there were some players who did work other jobs. I'm not saying they went and they worked in the coal mines. I'm not saying that. Okay. The old days, they probably did, some of those guys, or did more labor kind of. But they still had to, whether they're a salesman or a speaker, they're still doing something besides just concentrating on the sport. And I'm not saying they're not great athletes now. They're tremendous athletes. But It was an interesting thing they had on. They had the developers of the game developers Pocket Pennant Run on Digital Dice, which I'm not putting the thing in. There we go. And getting it all wrong. We got it in focus. No, wrong way. There we go. Digital Dice. Check it out with Ron Juckett and Dave Gardner as I lose my voice. But they said something, and I didn't think fun game, by the way. But they said you can't. A team now would crush a team from before. I don't know what would happen, but I don't necessarily believe that. Especially like in baseball.
You could go the opposite way and say fielders that had to work harder at their craft because they had gloves barely bigger than their palm instead of these highlight baskets they use now to catch ball. You know, you could say they might be more adept defensively. You never know. It's fun to discuss.
Right, no, and it makes great discussion. We've talked about that. But what I'm saying is, when you're comparing anything like sport, and that's what's fun. You know, it's a what if. As long as you have a fun discussion and no one's like trying to kill each other.
And the fun part about being able to discuss that with baseball is the outline or the score of the game has really not changed like it has in other sports.
Right.
It's the way it's approached.
Right. Because with football, the games change. What rule set are you playing? You going to let the defensive backs do like they did up until the early 80s, or what rule set are you playing with?
Let's look at football in the 20s versus now. They didn't have hash marks, so if you got ran out of bounds, you snapped it off of the sideline.
Yeah. So. Again, I'm not saying what's better or what's not. Everyone enjoy their eras, enjoy their games. I'm just saying the current athlete is, yes, a better physical athlete. I'll give them that. Doesn't mean doesn't mean they're worse either. But I just don't like when people denigrate historical players of any sport. I really don't. It drives me. And that's why, like, if you watch my channel, when I play, I'm playing the older teams against the newer teams, and I'm playing as the older team because that's what I like to do. Because when I heard someone say to me, Wilt Chamberlain would be like, I'm like, what do you mean? And I'm not saying they were not. And they're saying, oh, he'd be okay. I'm like, now let's take Wilt Chamberlain. He would be. I said, when are we playing? Are we playing old rules or new rules? We're playing new rules. Okay, that means there's no one who can guard Wilt Chamberlain now in professional basketball.
Well, so, now nobody wants to guard anybody, so
right.
It doesn't
so
matter.
You're well, that was my point. So now, and you can do that with any inside player, right? So you're telling me, okay, we'll play now. Now, well, he only weighed X amount. I was like, do you think he'd only weigh X amount now? And he was still a big guy. That's just my point. When people compare, they're always taking the modern and assume they're just going to kick the snot out of whatever era. You can't say that. When are you playing? You can say it, but you know what I mean? You got to have a give there. I don't know.
Well, and let's be honest, less than any other sport, baseball relies on true athleticism.
We're having some technical issues. I want to say, because when I mute Kurt, it goes away. So there's some sort of background sound with Kurt, but that's fine. I'm not going to mute him because
it's his proximity to the luxurious ocean there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you get, Kurt, for being where the weather's nice.
Should I drop off? Would that be better?
Would you what?
Should I drop off?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, there's some crunching noise. I don't get. It's too early for me to say shit. Can I say shit on my channel? I just did.
You know, Steve brings up a good point here, because in 1978, and we all know about that season, don't we, Al? I was 15.
We're going to mute Anthony right now.
I was 15, so that's a perfect. You're right, Steve.
Yeah. Yeah, Dave Gardner's mentioned that also. With Steve, I'll read it out. He says hello to everybody. And he says, my theory is whatever year was around your 15th birthday is your favorite. I agree with that. And then what happened was, with the teams I loved, Red Sox, Patriots, Knicks, and Celtics for basketball, I went back and obviously no internet then, and I tried to read everything I could find in the library or ask people who knew about those teams, because it was just fascinating. Like, what was their history? And then again, I'm not a Lakers fan. I'm not a Sixers fan. So I'm not a Philadelphia fan. But when I learned more and more about Wilt Chamberlain as the years went on, I'm like, that's incredible to me. There was a show called Greatest Sports Legends. That was always fascinating to me because I get to see, whoa, these guys, you know. But anyhow,
I would do the same thing, and Utah Mike's in the chat. He'll know how big the Salt Lake Public Library is. I would go there to do homework for high school.
Yep.
And instead, I'd go in the microfilm room and read like newspaper articles from 1910 and 1906 about baseball. You know, because again, there's no internet, but that was interesting to me.
Yeah, the other thing, and then we'll get back to everything. Here's a new thing, and just because I was going by something on YouTube, and there's people discovering like Larry Bird and Michael Jordan. I went, what? And I get it. They do it for views. I didn't know how good Larry Bird was. Are you out of your freaking mind? If you say you're a fan of a sport, I don't know. Maybe I'm different. I always look back. What's the history? What's this? What's that? Anthony just said it. I was voracious, wanting to know. And it's amazing to me. And I get it. They're doing it for views, some of them. I mean, look up how many people have done it. It's hilarious. And there's a few of them with, people who are like LeBron James fans. Oh, well, Michael Jordan wasn't as good. Listen, Michael Jordan, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Kareem, all those guys, they're great players from every era. And I think the thing with some of the modern sports fans, like younger, I don't know. Like I just said, I wanted to know everything about the team I was rooting for. And then like the Yankees, all right, that's our rival. You start reading about them. Oh, wow. And you talk to your, whoever, your uncle, your dad, your whatever. And you're like, tell me about Mickey Mantle. Tell me about this. That's the way I was. I wanted to know. Tell me. I was the same way with boxing. Tell me, how was that guy? Was he good? Tell me, honestly. And again, it's an opinion. It's all an opinion. But then I wanted to read about it. And I just find it hilarious with people discovering how good athletes were regardless of what sport. The big one now is like Larry Bird. No, I didn't know he could pass. I thought he was just a shooter. Kurt muted him. See, Kurt, did you hear it?
I'll find that even with high school kids I coach now. I'll bring up a player that played in the 80s or 90s, and they'll be like, "Who's that, coach?" And I'm like, "Really?"
It's just
and as a kid, I knew all that stuff when I played.
Yeah, it's just different, I think. I think the attention span is different than it was then because, and Kurt, you're doing something like with Japanese baseball, and you're going to go back through the history and this and that. And to me, it's going to be fascinating. I'm going to enjoy when you do your book. I'm going to get the book. I just want to bring that up because I wanted your guys' opinion and the chat's opinion. When you were young, did you try to look up? I went to the library and I looked up as much stuff as I could. And it's just when you have the internet now and there's like, oh, I never knew the person was this good.
Well, part of it, like when I was playing title bout in 1979, I'd get old boxers and I'd be like, oh, who the hell is this guy? So I'd go to the library, look at microfiche and read about them and learn about them. Yeah, for sure.
I think we're different though, because I remember a lot of my friends when I was growing up had no idea who even some fairly recent contemporaries, baseball stars were. I don't know. I guess if I had to guess, I would say that's not a new thing. Like if you're a casual or a more casual fan than probably the three of us are, I think that sense of history is one of the first things that falls away. I would guess, or interest in the history of the sport is probably one of the first things that falls away because that takes some effort to find out about. Even today it would. I mean, you got to click, and a lot of people don't like to click very often. So it's I don't know. I'm trying to remember. The guys I used to play with on my high school team, like I would know the entire rosters of all of the teams that were then in baseball, and I would be amazed that, you know, they would know like the Milwaukee Brewers players and they'd know the All-Stars, but as far as deeper than that, most of them couldn't go, and some could, but most couldn't. And so I don't know that that's terribly new. The difference is that it's so accessible now. There's really
maybe it was like, because my friends and I were such sports nuts, like we looked up everything, you know, just like, hey, did you find, let me borrow that book when you're done, you know, like you get from the library, let me borrow it. And the guys you're right, I'm probably just being a crotchety old guy, but it's Anthony, when he brought up the boxers, because like I have the title bout was the same thing, and I remember boxing was tough to, you know, and then they had so I had the boxing magazines, they'd have old articles, you know, like they talk about older fighters, but then they had boxing encyclopedias, and I would buy those things, you know. Then my dad knew I liked that stuff, so him and my brother would pick up, you know, I have this big book of boxing, which is still one of my favorite books. A lot of photos, but still a lot of fun stuff in it. I used to get the Ring. It's like I got the paperback. It was like this thick. It was like the Lord of the Rings book, for God's sakes. And it had the whole, I want to say it was the Ring or the Boxing Almanac, whatever. But it had all the Hall of Famers, all their fights, and you could sit there and go down and read. And to me, that was fascinating stuff to me. So I guess,
did you guys read box scores as kids?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Every day.
I enjoyed because here's the thing, and Dan Douglas, oh geez, here it is. It was fascinating because he said something about Japanese, like when he found out like he liked Japanese wrestling, he said, I wanted to learn more about it, you know, and that's with anything. That's just me. But yes, box scores. The thing with box scores, Anthony and Kurt, was back then there was I didn't have cable television. So we got Red Sox, Yankees, and then this other channel came, we got Mets, and we got the game of the week. That's why I have a really soft spot, for game of the week and Monday Night Baseball. And the thing with Monday Night Baseball, you got a lot of the Red Sox just because where we lived, and they would still give you regional most, not all the time, most of the time. And even sometimes with game of the week, but not a lot less with game of the week. So I got to see National League teams and other teams I never saw. So box scores, and then I'd get my baseball cards out to see if I had that, you know, like when I was younger especially. But yeah, I love the box scores. Even with basketball, I used to read the box scores. And football, I'd go through the Patriots, and of course I would watch the Patriots games as a kid, but I'd go through, I love that stuff.
If you guys remember TV Guide, and Bear's Den is right, we are those old guys now, but I used to read, you know, in the TV Guide, they used to put the rosters of the college game of the day and the pro games.
Yeah,
I'd read the rosters, for God's sake, you know?
Right. And the numbers, right?
Yes. I knew every player on every team by the time the game started.
Our good friend, Mr. Utah Mike, Sports Time Machine, check out that wonderful channel. This is my father took the commuter train from New York City to New Jersey, where I lived. So I always got the Daily News or New York Post to read. Oh, yeah. My dad used to, so they did a nice job, much better than our local paper. The only thing I noticed with those, because they had such a distribution, late games weren't in there, where the paper where I was, sometimes the late games made it. But yeah, the New York papers were fun. That's the only other paper I read was either I think it was the Post, my dad, because they had I can't remember if it was the Post or the other one. They had maybe they both had. My dad liked horse racing, and they had the horse racing in there. So, but yeah, I enjoyed that. I love that stuff. And that's why we play the games we play. It's the same thing. You get to relive stuff. Some people, they again, play the games the way you want. Play your games, the games you like, and this and that. But you know, someone goes, "Oh, it's nostalgia." Well, yeah, it's nostalgia. It's fun. Or the what if. I hate to tell you this. Even if you're playing as played, I hate to burst everyone's bubble. it's still what if, because we already know what happened. We already know what happened.
True. That's very true. Heads exploding all over this great land of ours, Al.
Yep.
It's the thing about it is that you can't control all the variables, and even though you may want to, you can't quite do it. And so
here's the thing we've talked about.
But,
my example about controlling the variables, the 1988 Red Sox picked up off waivers. I want to say he got cut by Texas. Third baseman, Larry Parrish. And it was his last year in baseball. I'm almost positive. He might have hung around 89 a little bit, but that was it. He got so hot for the Red Sox in the span of like 3.5 to 4 weeks, and I might have it too long, too short. Definitely was not more than a month. But you can't. The game, if you played the 88 Red Sox, he's going to stink because he was an awful player for the majority. And unless you get lucky with those, like he would. Chris Anderson and I were talking about it because I was saying, how can you duplicate that in a game? You just can't. And that was like an amazing thing that you picked up this guy who was done, and he just got hot, and he hit the ball. He had that weird stance, and he whipped the bat. And I swear to God, not because I'm a Red Sox fan, that left field wall took away more homers from him that turned into singles because he crushed the ball, and he literally would bounce. I'm like, and I forgot who they're now. It probably was Ned Martin then, and Ned Martin and somebody, I would think, and they would sit there and laugh. In any other ballpark, that's a homer, but in Fenway, he's getting singles. The other thing, because I've done, just to get back to, you've made teams, and obviously Anthony's made games and teams. Sometimes you can't, and I'll use the 58 Giants when I was trying to make teams for my old Fran Tarkenton game. Go back and look at their stats. They did nothing special, but somehow they won. They beat the Cleveland Browns with Jim Brown, not once, not twice, but 3 times in that year. Now, that pseudo playoff game to see who was going to play the Colts, for some reason, I want to say, if I remember the story correctly, Jim Brown never asked out of a game in his life, but he was a little, whatever. I don't even want to say dinged up. He needed to come out. He felt he needed to come out for a play, right? And the coach got mad. I wouldn't put him back in the game. I go, you have to be a complete idiot not to put, whatever. But my point is, I'm like, Jesus, there's no way on paper this team beats the Baltimore Colts. And I'm trying to leverage. They're an okay defense. I was like, maybe turnovers. So I tried to look up everything. No, nothing special. Just they won. And that's hard to. I don't know if someone's tried to make teams or in whatever, just for ha-has. That's really tough to get. Just when teams just have that intangible somehow and they win, or it's their year. Because even with players, if he has Joe Charbonneau, if you played 80, that's the rookie year he won, right? Was it 80, 81? He's still going to play well. But if you have a team that's just, you look at their stats and you're like, nothing special, but somehow they won a ton of games. It's tough to do. And Anthony, you've done your football game, which, when is that coming out? How close are you with that? I wanted to get to that. I'm sorry.
I'm fleshing out the final. I want to have 3 ways to play it: play-by-play, hybrid, and then full quick play. I'm fleshing out the quick play, and then I'm going to start rating the 2021 teams. So I'm shooting for mid to late spring. And that's, you brought up that point, rating the Giants. It's the same thing with college because everybody doesn't play everybody else.
No.
So I had to come up. That's why I came up with the talent factor for the college football game, because you could have a Mid-American Conference team put up obscene offensive numbers, and if you just played them straight, they would compete with Alabama, and that's not realistic. You might have an upset here and there, but they're not going to do it day in, day out. And I want to go back to what Kent STG replays. about the glory of their times. But if you have iTunes, I would strongly recommend getting the audio book of that, because it is actually the taped interviews of those players telling their own stories.
Oh, wow.
So
Cool.
what you read in the book, it will actually be Sam Crawford talking and telling what he told the author. I listen to that. It's like a tradition around the holidays when I work. Every single year I listen to that whole book. Very, very cool.
Bears Den 007 says Gary Gaetti for the Cubs in 1998. Same thing as Parrish. Yeah, I didn't even know that. I learned something today. But yeah, it's a guy who just gets hot for a short period of time. And again, that was 1988 for me. It was Morgan Magic, which people go, "What's your favorite Red Sox season?" And I always stun them. I go, "Well, one of my favorites, if not, is 1988." They fired John McNamara, who I couldn't stand, and I was happy. And they hired the guy from Mass, Walpole Joe. And it was just, they got hot and they shouldn't have won. And it was just fun. It was fun. It was like a fun, like everyone was having fun again, because they weren't having fun with McNamara. So that was just my opinion. Yeah, it's tough, because I'll tell you one thing I've noticed playing a lot. I like playing the 1919 Chicago White Sox. I'm fascinated by them. I'm even more fascinated, which I didn't know, but talking with Anthony and listening to Kurt and other people about, I just assumed they got suspended right off the bat. I didn't realize they let them play till hearing other people talk about it.
Here's the thing about that, and Kurt, you can probably chime in on this too. The Bible of that whole scandal is really the Elliot Asmanoff book. And he gets so much stuff wrong. It's just ridiculous.
Oh, you're telling me about that, yeah.
Yeah, the whole narrative about how Comiskey underpaid to play. The Sox had one of the highest payrolls in baseball. That was not the issue. It was two dirty players, Risberg and Gandil, that got greedy and were able. And with Gandil, with both of them, they were kind of thugs. And Joe Jackson himself said he was scared of Risberg because he was a hard man.
Yeah.
So they applied intimidation even to pull those other guys in. And it's no excuse, but the whole thing was not Comiskey's fault.
Kurt, do you have earbuds? Do you have a headset, Kurt?
Because I don't. I may have one. Hang on one second. I'll be back.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Steelers fan. We're just trying to work on that. There's some kind of static on Kurt's end, so we'll try everything. Summer of 49 is a great book. This is after further review with Steve Tower. Check out that wonderful channel. And a slice of bygone time. Unfortunately, it ends with the Red Sox collapsing against the Yankees last 3 games of the season. Yes, it does. Not.
Just as a pro tip, there's absolutely nothing that's unfortunate about that, Steve. Just saying.
Okay, yeah. Let's mute Anthony now.
Come on.
No, but that goes back to my point, because like 1972 is a fascinating baseball season to me, just because of that mini strike. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not an expert at it. I just read a few things. I'm far from an expert at anything. But if I understood correctly, they played. And again, the Red Sox, as I went on and discovered more, they still had an opportunity had they won their games to win the division. But they technically did play one less game, but that's what was agreed to by the owners, because they didn't want to make up the games because they were pissed at the players. Again, if I understand correctly, and they're like, we're not going to pay you. You don't want to play. We're not going to pay you. We're not making up the games. It came back to bite the Red Sox in the ass. But again, they had their opportunities, right? They controlled their destiny going into Baltimore. They had a 1-game lead. And in fact, if they just won the series in Detroit, they would have won the American League East. And I want to say Billy Martin managed the 72 Tigers. I want to say Martin. I'm almost positive Billy Martin managed the 72 Tigers. Because isn't that the year in the playoffs where Bert Campaneris threw the bat at the pitcher?
I think so.
Yeah, and I want to say it was Billy Martin was the.
And that was an impressive feat, because the Orioles back then, they were like the 1990s Braves with that pitching staff. They had Palmer, Cuellar, McAnally. They had a stout pitching staff.
Yeah, and it just was a really interesting season for the Red Sox down that stretch, because they had, if you read The Curse of the Bambino, there's a section on the 72 season. You want to talk about freaky failures and epic collapse. Aparicio tripping around third, not once, but twice when he should have scored the winning or tying run. I can't remember. And it was really a strange year. They were not meant to win. That's all I could say. But I think we lost Kurt. I can't I think we've lost Kurt. Oh, there's Kurt. Kurt? I think we lost. We'll see. He's working on something on his end. So now with your football game, you have 3 ways you can play, Anthony. And again, that's going to be Glory Days football, correct?
Glory Days football.
Okay. We're getting Kurt back here.
I actually, when I picked up the most recent set of boxer cards, I had him do some prototype of the game cards for that.
Yeah.
And they came out pretty nice. They're
on I like it.
Cardstock. You know, you can see the colors pop pretty much. So yeah, I was very, very happy with this.
And it's all on one sheet, just like the team, everything for the team.
Yeah, they're like a big
Glory Days boxing card.
Really. Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, that was one source of relief for me, because I didn't know how he could translate those to printing and cutting them, but I was happy with what he gave me. So
Steve Tower, after further reviews with Steve Tower, I always loved reading about a time before I was born. I agree with that. That's what I'm fascinated by history, especially any type of history, but sports. Sports is fun. One of the most fascinating sporting events, the rematch, Joe Louis and Max Schmeling, just with all the ramifications. It is incredible. It is incredible. The first fight, the second fight, the 1972 Olympics, the basketball team not winning the gold. That is another fascinating.
Well,
unbelievable.
Think about that whole Olympics. You don't really realize, and thank you, Mr. Wrestling too, and Matt. But, I was 9 years old in 1972, and going through those Munich Olympics, not just the basketball, but the even bigger story.
The terrorist attack.
Israeli hostage. Yeah. And you don't realize, as a kid, the historical significance of events like that. It really was.
But yeah, I always loved, and like Hank Greenberg might have had a shot at breaking Babe Ruth's record. We have Kurt. Well, we had Kurt back. Kurt, he's upside down. There's Kurt.
Woo.
I changed the setting. Is this any better?
Perfect.
That is freaking awesome, Kurt. That's why you are Mr. Baseball. That's why you're Mr. Columbia. That's why you're in some place it's really hot, and I'm here, and the wind is howling outside, and I was like, the cat's always trying to escape. I open the door. You want to go down? The cat's like, no.
But not to rain on this parade. Kurt, one thing I'm disappointed in is I missed the nutritional tips on your channel now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know.
What happened to Lakeside Beef?
No organic Pop-Tarts, no canned beef. Come on.
I know. Well, you know what? I was worried I was going to get in trouble. That's why I stopped those. But maybe I need to restart.
Those
were,
again, to me, what YouTube is about is having fun, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
Whether, and that was when you ever came up with Lakeside Beef. I think I was at work listening to it. I literally looked around. I brought the thing up. Because it was, I could replay it. I am laughing hysterically. When I got home, I said, Teresa, you got to watch this. Because I kept going, Lakeside Beef. She goes, what the hell are you talking? Because I do like these stupid promos for myself. Brought to you by Lakeside Beef, And she's watching it. She's laughing. And then you came up with the salmon in a can or in a bag or something or whatever the hell it was.
What I like is the delivery too. I mean, it's almost it's so dry, like Norm Macdonald, and I'll be working and I'll be sitting, I'll be like, what the fuck? But no, that's a great piece of that's a great little extra you do. That's really funny.
Bengals win a playoff game. Holy cow.
Nice.
Good for them. They look good. They look good today.
They
But yeah,
did.
no, I like that stuff. I thought that was then with Anthony's channel, right? He used to do, he called them fun facts. So I don't know how many in a row. It was usually the dead ball games he was doing. Yeah, it was the dead ball games.
The seventh inning fun fact.
He go fun facts, and it was like someone either got
Hit
killed,
by a train,
eaten by a shark, their dog ate them. They won the lottery, but then a boulder fell on their head. I mean, I was like, so I'd be like looking forward to the fun facts. And I think it was our good friend Steeler fan, 1933.
It was Matt, yeah.
Matt, like he had a happy one. And I was like, I remember I fell off my chair sitting here in the studio listening. I'm like, that's not a fun fact. There's no death in this. This is not an Anthony Crooks fun fact. And so, yeah, as Dan nihilistic facts by Anthony.
Touche.
Anthony and Kurt need to collaborate on a smoothie featuring lakeside beef with gravy and beet powder. Oh, God.
So apparently my real nutritional video I did made an impact, I guess, because he remembers the beet powder.
So, yeah, we got a little bit of the choppy sound again, but not as bad as before. So, yeah, that's fine. I don't know what it is. Don't worry about it. It is what it is. I'm not worried about it.
Okay.
But the lakeside beef was hilarious. Brought to you by, and what was it? Your head, you'll be dead before your head hits the table.
That's right. That's their slogan. You know, it made grocery shopping a whole lot more fun. Once I got in that like mindset, I'm looking for something that's weird. It just lightened the whole mood about grocery shopping.
Yeah, because you came up with some. I think I actually asked you, well, where did you get that? And you went, yeah, I was in my grocery store. I saw it and I bought it. Imagine you going up there and people going, oh my God, someone eats this shit.
Yeah. Yeah. A can of beef. Yeah. Tuna. Or no, not tuna. Salmon.
Yeah, it was something. It was. It was. You just had some fun, and you always do have fun stuff. I'm saying, and I don't know how. I mean, I love it. That's just me. I love the whole comedy. I like when people, if they're doing YouTube, just enjoy what you're doing, however you enjoy it. Because I'll give you, if you convey you're having fun, and the people watching, whether live or later, however you do it, they're gonna have fun. And I was a little sad to see Lakeside beef go, but I understand.
Yeah.
You have your petition now, Kurt, so you know what to do.
That's right. I got my marching orders. That's right.
Big Lots is a treasure trove of dicey foods, FYI.
Don't even want to know.
Yeah, it's you gotta watch your sodium content. That's all I'll say.
You know, in the Army, they used to give us obviously the C rations. But one of the things that was actually good was they had a canned fruit cake, and it was really tasty. Maybe because it was petrified, I don't know, but I actually enjoyed it.
Maybe because it wasn't anything else you were eating.
It was everything else was so much worse. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's funny. But so, just because we're talking about, then we'll get off this. How did you come up with that? Because that was a great routine, the lakeside beef, because that was the first one.
It's the whole, it was the first one because I was looking for something seriously that day. I was looking for something in that aisle, and I know what it was. I was looking for cat food, and
makes sense.
I was walking down the cat food aisle, and for whatever reason, lakeside beef was in the cat food aisle. And so it caught my eye, and I stopped and I thought to myself, oh, wait a minute, is this cat food? And so I stopped and I read the can, and then I'm laughing hysterically because I read the nutrition facts, and it's death in a can. So
and if you don't know,
I'm the only person laughing in the aisle. People are walking by me like, what the hell's your problem? Which people do anyway, I grant you. But This time it was a lot more of them. And so I'm laughing hysterically at this can, and I couldn't put it back on the shelf. I had to put it in my cart. And that's how Lakeside Beef was born. And then I had to go find the cat food.
Well, if you don't know that, Kurt was and still is an educator. He's just educating in a different way. And hats off for all your fine service during the years. But so that's funny. So you said, I have to read how bad, what is, and then when you ever did and I'm like already giggling when you're giving the thing, and I eat a lot of bad stuff I'm not supposed to eat, but when you ever said, if you ate if you ate the whole can, you'd be dead before your head hit the table. Lakeside Beef.
The best part is that they advertise it's in its own juices. What in the world could the juices be? I mean, they're not. Oh my God, it's just unbelievable. And you look at there's like saturated fat.
I remember you reading
it. Sodium, yes, but so much other stuff that's just gonna kill you. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Dan Douglas says Kurt's food segments reminds me of Letterman's supermarket find hilarious.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then you get in that groove. So then you're looking for anything bizarre in the food aisle. And so you wind up with canned salmon.
And I agree with that, Brian.
Yeah, Brian says Tabasco, and I was never in the military, so I can't. So do you, and Anthony, the question, Tabasco sauce, a must for C rations and MREs, LOL.
Really, anything you could put on C rations, it would destroy your taste buds before you experience the flavor was a must. So yeah, 100%.
Excellent stuff. I'd like to say hello to Big Clue, Richard Butler. I don't think we did say, I know I read some stuff. Hello to Dan and Brian and everybody else. Oh, Jeffrey Jamestown, baseball commissioner. I said, yes. Hello, Jeffrey, and I hope the Patriots win also. I'll tell you something, a Patriots Tampa Bay Super Bowl, that's a ratings. So, refs, you listen to the ratings and you throw this game for the Patriots. I don't care by hook or crook. I don't care how they get there. I'm just kidding. Steve Tower says, I love the little Tabasco bottles and MREs. Steve did a pre-play. I'll tell you a funny story. Because I'm old and I get up in the middle of the night because my body says I have to do stuff, okay? And if you're young, God bless you. But so I get up to go to what I call my office where I do my best thinking. That's right. Thank you. I did not serve, but thank you, Anthony, and others who did. Greatly appreciate it. So I get up to use the bathroom, and I always have my phone. So I'm like, I got to listen to something, right? And Steve did a pre-play of the Patriots playoff game using Al Wilson's
Fast Drive.
So I'm listening to it. I'm listening. I'm getting to the game, right? I'm not going to spoil it, so check it out. But the video is like, I want to say 25 minutes, 30 minutes, if that. And I'm halfway through it, and my legs are falling asleep. And I'm like, okay, I have to, And so I got up this morning, and I finished it. But it was just funny because everyone's, like a lot of times I start listening to stuff before I go to sleep, and I'll say, whether people believe it or not, I'm going to catch the rest of this when I wake up because I'm tired. And Teresa's like, go to sleep. Stop listening to that stuff. I can't help it. I love it. Yeah. So. Canned mackerel is stomach turning also. Ooh, canned mackerel. I'm not a big. The only thing I like tuna fish comes out of a can. I like it. I like tuna fish. We eat things out of cans. I get that, but I don't know.
I would think any fish not named tuna in a can is not good.
I don't think I could eat. I don't know if I'd try Lakeside Beef. You know what? I might. I can't.
No.
I think it would smell like horrific dog food. That's what I think it would smell like.
Oh yeah, for sure. And oh god. Oh my god. It's not.
Anyway.
I can't believe it's a product for human beings. It's got to be.
Jim
There's got to
L.
be some other deal there.
Yeah,
Like,
that just again. I don't mean to keep talking. It's just it brings a smile to my face. There are times when I'm having a pissy day at work, and I think, murder brought to you by Lakeside Beef. I could just feed these people Lakeside Beef.
That would be it.
2 weeks, they're dead.
Oh, Bryan just brought up a great memory. So,
Anthony, remember the green eggs from the field?
Yes, 100%. Because whatever, I don't know if it was preservative they put in, but they would literally, when you'd open them, they were green.
This was in the military food.
Yeah. So when you were out on bivouac and you had to eat stuff out of cans, yeah. And they stunk too. They had a very unique odor. It was kind of like a cross between feet, armpits, and a cow pasture.
So much for an army lives on their stomach, or what travels on their stomach.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And the mess halls are great, but the stuff you have to eat when you're out in the field, not so much.
I do know my Patriots are about to start, but I have two of my favorite people of all time on the channel. So I got the game over here. Well, I'm going to switch it. And Nurse Teresa will give me updates. So I'm okay for a while. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this game tonight. The Patriots are going to win tonight. They're going to lose next week because that's just the way it is. I think they lucked out in a weird way. I mean, I wish they would have won the division, but they get to play a team they're familiar with. They get to go to Buffalo, which they have a better road record than home record. And the weather's going to be crappy, so go out, hit someone, and run the ball. And that's what they're going to do, just like when they beat them. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. Larry Harris. I like eating Spam from time to time, which is in a can. Hey, Larry, whatever makes you happy. That's not my thing, but whatever makes you happy. What was it, Monty Python Gag? Was it spam, spam, spam? Was that what they said?
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that one. That's a good one.
What's your favorite Monty Python gag?
I think, boy, I don't know. There was this deal, and I can't remember if it was during the show or one of the movies. But people kept losing limbs, or like the
was it the Black Knight?
No, because it was someone playing a piano.
Oh, that's a TV.
And the piano key cover fell on them, and they came up with bloody stumps, and there's blood flying everywhere. I think that would be one of them. The lumberjack thing is a little tame, but that's funny.
The lumberjack gag. If no one's seen it, look it up on YouTube. It's the first time I heard them sing the song as a kid, I went, "What did they say?" And I break out laughing, because the father likes to wear women's clothes. It was just funny. It was just It was subtle, and it was, I mean, nothing really subtle about Monty Python, but that was probably one of the subtler things. Do you remember the self-defense class?
No.
How to defend yourself from fruit? And he goes, and so the guy goes, "Why can't we learn how to defend ourselves when someone comes at us with a knife?" He goes like, John Cleese, like, "You think you could just jump in with someone charging you with a knife? You got to do bananas." And this, and they go, "We did that. We did this. We did that." And I think he goes, "Bananas. We did. Why don't we do a pointy stick?" He goes, "Why don't you shut up? Now take this banana and charge me and scream." And the guy, and he shoots him. Right? And they're like, "What the hell?" He goes, "Now it's your turn. Pick up the banner." He goes, "I'm not going to pick up the banner. You're going to shoot me." And then they did all that. But that was. Then Anthony, Monty Python, they did this thing where the guy goes, "That's not funny." And then he walks outside. He's like a colonel. And then they're doing their drill. And all of a sudden they go into the hairdresser voice, we'll call it. I don't want to get banned from YouTube. And they just go, yeah, I love Monty Python. You know what's weird? You either like Monty Python or you hated Monty Python. Because I had friends who go, "That's the stupidest thing."
It's an acquired taste. And speaking of terrible food, the one skit I remember Monty Python is always the spam skit.
Yeah, I was just talking about spam, spam, spam.
I would like spam, 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 baked beans, eggs, and spam. Baked beans, dearie. Yeah.
So Jim L brings up something. We'll get back to some sports sim talk. He just picked up Legends of Boxing on the PC. Fun game. I like it too.
Me too.
He says, Al, on Legends of Boxing, Ali wins 99.9% of his bouts. I'll need to get Glory Days Boxing. Well, here's the thing. No matter what boxing game you get, Ali's an all-time great. Most people think he's the GOAT. And he's definitely up there, regardless of if you go Lewis, whatever, Marciano, however you, Tice, however you rate your guys, Ali's up there. He's gonna be very few fighters. He probably fought at one of the best times of heavyweight boxing. So he fought a lot of great fighters, very good fighters. I mean, he lost to Frazier once, Norton once, though I think 3 times in my opinion. Definitely twice, the last fight he lost. And Leon Spinks, he's pretty much all done. He comes back, he beats him.
Yeah, that was a fluke.
And he loses to Holmes and Burbick, thank you. So in reality, again, if you're looking at prime, and I don't know how they judge how Legends of Boxing did, when I look at Ali's career, Jamel or anyone, pre-suspension, that's his prime. Post-suspension, he's still really, 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 really good, but that's not his prime because he fought completely different. He did. Just go look. He was older. But he's gonna win. I mean, Ali Marciano, tough fight. You don't know who wins, right? Ali, Joe Louis, you don't know. But now let's go through contenders of that era. He probably beats most of those contenders. I'm just saying, Walcott, Charles, they give him a tough fight, but I think he's going to be heavily favored against pretty much champions and contenders of any era. So how do you go about rating, Anthony? Because you rated boxers, and Kurt, you've done ratings. And boxing's very okay. I made Joe. First of all, thank you again, Anthony, for doing Joe backseat because I'm ecstatic. I made him in another game just because I wanted to see. And I tell you something. I looked at his record and I looked at who he fought. And I went, you know what? I got to rate him slightly higher than I was going to. This is my opinion, right? Mm-hmm. But then I realized in one of the test fights I did, and I just quick simmed it. You know what I mean? Because you could do this. It's a PC game, right? I went, he stops Ezra Charles in the 14th. Well, he really lost to Ezra Charles in the 11th. I'm not saying he couldn't have done it, but I'm saying in reality, he lost. So I tweaked one of the ratings, and I did it again. I got more of a closer result. So, again, it's tough. How do you go about, because you've rated, let's just talk boxing. How do you go about rating? You have to look at who they fought, too, I would think.
No, that's actually probably one of the biggest things. So, for me, it's a long process. I do research, and I'll categorize fighters into tiers.
Yep.
Three different tiers, and then within each tier, there's 3 or 4 subsets, right? And it starts out based on record, titles, all that stuff, and then I go through and look at their fights on BoxRec and who they fought, and I'll give you examples of the upcoming set. Myron Mitchell and Gene Hatcher, who will both be junior welterweights in the set. Gene Hatcher was 32-7, had 23 knockouts, but when you look at him, and when I can see boxers on YouTube too, it helps me because, I understand the sport, the mechanics, the flow, and all that stuff. He wasn't a very skilled fighter. I mean, when he won the title against Johnny Bumpus, he got his ears
Buffalo, New York. I watched that fight.
Yeah, and he
had a riot almost after in the ring.
Yeah, so he wasn't a very good fighter. So you look at his level of opposition and what happened in his big fights, and even the big fights he won, like against Bumpus, who excellent boxer, didn't have a great chin. So that knocks him down. So he comes out basically as average. And then you look at someone like Myron Mitchell, who officially had a record of 13-13-4, but he fought in an era where there was unsanctioned fights because boxing in most states, it had to be classified as exhibition. Yep. So you'd get newspaper decisions, which didn't officially go on your record, but you can count it as a win at whatever.
Because you had to say it was like an
look at who he
exhibition, right?
fought. Huh?
You had to say it was like an exhibition or something.
Yeah, so it would be an exhibition, and
But it was
then
a real fight. It was not, you know.
yeah, they weren't playing, but one of the
yeah.
like local newspapers would have somebody there, and they'd render their unofficial verdict on who won if it went the distance. So in those exhibitions, he fought top level guys
Yep.
and fared well against some of them. So he gets a little bit higher rating despite the mediocre record. So yeah, there's just a lot of, you know, and again, some of it's very subjective, and you know, so. But level of competition for sure, and also longevity, being able to beat, you know, higher ranked guys comes into play. So there's a lot of moving up and down and tweaking as I go through the process for sure.
Yeah, it's boxing's interesting because that's the one sport, except at heavyweight now. You can sit there and compare fighters from different eras and how would they fight each other. Different styles now too. But I'm saying heavyweights are much bigger now, so it's a little more difficult. But what I like about your game, Anthony, is you just have to accept. You just say everything is. You can't sit there and go, "Oh, this person's a smallish heavyweight." That's not the point of the game. The point is, how did they fight, and who they fought at the time, and so on and so forth. I just really.
And that's really the biggest, I guess, criticism I'll get is, you know, I'll get messages or posts that, you know, no way would Jack Dempsey beat Tyson Fury. You know, and
you don't know.
You can,
but I'll tell you when someone says that to you, and I'm not saying they're right, wrong, whatever. Tyson Fury, I believe his first fight in the U.S., Madison Square Garden, on NBC. They had just brought boxing back on a Saturday afternoon. Fought a cruiserweight, moving up to heavyweight, Cunningham, and I want to say his first name was Steve, who was a good fighter. And he knocked down Tyson Fury. He almost knocked him out. Now, Fury then realized, I'm just going to lean on this guy, and he just mugged him the rest of the fight. It was a good fight, but Fury knocks him out.
Well,
so
you're going to see that in probably his next title defense against Usyk if they can put it together. Usyk is a cruiserweight who's come up, but you know, Dempsey fought at 185, 187, and yeah, he's at a disadvantage. But you know, with heavyweights, you kind of have to suspend your belief. It's, you know, almost like wrestling.
Yeah,
and look at how they did in their era when there wasn't, you know, cruiserweights and all these interim weight classes. I mean, hell, before light heavyweights, you fought at middleweight 160, and then above that, you fought heavyweights.
Yep.
And there were big heavyweights early, like obviously Jess Willard. Jack Johnson was 6'1" and about 205, 210. So for his time, he was a big heavyweight. Yeah, so you have to just kind of, you know, take that with a grain of salt and kind of put them on equal footing. And that's a problem you don't run into with the other weight division because the limits have always been the same.
So Jim L was asking, I think he means Marciano, not Graziano. Ali, I mean, again, that's the super fight at that day and age. Now the super fight would be people probably thinking, can Tyson Fury beat Mike Tyson or something? But that's the fun about a super fight. I would say this. Anyone who could punch hard, right, and had ability, because some guys punch hard and their ability is not at the same level as how hard they punch. Doesn't mean that you had a shot at winning a fight. My example, when people say that Ali could not get beaten by older fighters, whether Marciano or Lewis or Dempsey, I always say this: look at the film of Henry Cooper, and when he hit Ali, Cooper was a good banger, not considered an all-time great banger. Good. So now, if you're telling me that if somehow Joe Louis or Rocky Marciano or Jack Dempsey landed, they have a shot at hurting or winning. That's all I'm saying. Because that's the way I go to compare fighters. I look at who they fought, and then I say, okay. I look at when they fought their toughest fights, and maybe they lost or they looked bad or something happened. Now, could this other, and I do the same thing the other way, right? If I'm comparing, I don't want to look at when they annihilated someone. I get that part. So Ali would give Dempsey and Marciano a lot of trouble because of his boxing skill, obviously. Who did Dempsey lose to? Gene Tunney, as Steve Towers said. I'm telling you, Dempsey loses to Gene Tunney. But I'm just saying a skilled boxer. Who gave Marciano trouble? Ezzard Charles, Jersey Joe Walcott. So you look at that, and that's what makes it fascinating. And again, the size difference. Ali in his prime was 212. The size difference against a Joe Louis was 190 to 195. That's not a big size difference. And it's an advantage, yes, but not. Marciano, 185, 183, a little more of a, but still. Dempsey, what did he fight? 190, 189, 190, 192. So,
and ultimately it comes down to style too. I mean, Tunney was a great fighter at light heavyweight and heavyweight. The only guy he had trouble with was Harry Greb, who was a
Harry Greb beat him.
Machine,
right.
And he had to draw it a lot. His one loss was against Greb. And Ali had problems with Joe Frazier. I look at Dempsey, not quite as skilled, but a very similar, Marciano, not quite as technically skilled, but a very similar fighter to Joe Frazier. So I think he would give Ali trouble. I think Ali would outbox him and dominate that part of the game at space. But if he got inside, I think he'd give Ali trouble. Marciano's problem was he had an exceedingly short reach.
You had to get inside.
Problem.
Yeah. Here's the other thing. This is interesting because this is the one. Is John L. one of the boxers you rated, or was he around? No, John L's rated in the game. John L. Sullivan's in the first set. But my question, Anthony, that regardless, that era, the style of fighting is completely different, and you have to sort of suspend. Yeah,
they're like this.
And did they have to at certain times, if by contract you had to stand at a certain point and just smash the crap out of each other, like you didn't really move?
When most of his fights took place, it was under London prize ring rules. So the rounds weren't timed. You went until someone got knocked down, or you could also throw somebody down. So like his 75-round fight against Jake Gilrain, some rounds went 20 seconds, some rounds went 4 minutes. So definitely a different style of fighting, where it was actually more like a street fight then.
Right.
Which is why he had such a problem with James Corbett when he fought under Marquis of Queensberry rules finally with gloves, because he couldn't use his roughhouse tactics, which he excelled at. So,
touchdown Buffalo for all you Patriots.
Spoiler, guys.
Kurt, you have a heavyweight tournament, 70s, very interesting. Using Glory Days Boxing. Share. Don't give it away, but just share. Go to the channel, watch the bouts. They're fun.
Well, I was looking what we were talking about before, going off of when you were younger, and I guess you could argue the 70s was the best heavyweight decade. So what I wanted to do with Glory Days Boxing was to look for 16 fighters and create a tournament and see not necessarily who's going to win, because I think it's going to be Ali, but how's it going to fall after Ali is really kind of what I was interested in. And I didn't come up with 16 guys. I came up with 12 because there were the other guys that were good enough to be in the tournament, in my judgment, were kind of teetering on either like a 70s, 80s kind of a thing, or a 60s into the 70s, and then they were kind of petering out. And I even took a couple of those. But so like Jerry Cooney, I didn't want to use Jerry Cooney, even though technically he was active in the 70s, but I didn't want to count him as a 70s fighter. So I came up with 12 and did the first round fights, and those are now done. And so now we're into the second round, and I struggled to see the top 4 guys, but I came up with Ali as number 1 and Foreman as number 2, and then I gave the 3rd seed to Frazier, even though maybe it should have gone to Holmes, and then I gave the 4th seed to Holmes. And what that ended up doing was, after the first round fights were done, that I reseeded the guys who moved up, and it created the second round fights of Norton versus Holmes, actually, for one of them.
Yeah.
And then Ali against, I think it's Lyle. And then Frazier versus Shavers, and Foreman versus Quarry. And then it'll go down to Holmes and Norton. The winner there will face the winner of Lyle and Ali. And then the other side will be Frazier versus Shavers, and what did I say? Foreman versus Quarry. Those two will fight on that side of the bracket, and then we'll do a final. And then I was thinking about doing something along those lines with a lighter class in the 80s, but I'm not that far yet. But that'll be like in summer.
It's just such a fun game. And Jim L has a question.
It's a really fun game. And the thing about it, and the struggle that I had, because I used to own Title Bout 1, and I played the Jesus out of it. And I loved that game, but unlike Title Bout 1, Title Bout 1, if you, at least my experience was, that if your control factor was significantly above, even by 2 points, above the other guy, you were going to win. And in some cases, it led to some really, really weird, I thought, mismatches. I used to be I read all those magazines too, and I was a huge boxing guy when I was young. And and I fought Ali and Norton 3 times in 15-round, or scheduled for 15-round fights with Title Bout 1. And Norton won precisely 3 rounds. And that ruined the game for me. And with the difference with Glory Days boxing to me is you can be favored and you could look like you're going to win. But the other guys always got an opportunity. Like there's literally a fighting chance for the underdog. And that's what I like about the game, is that just like in real life, the underdog has a real opportunity. May not win, but you can envision a scenario in which they might. And I appreciate that so much. And I think that that's, for me, the game is smooth and it's well researched, for sure. But if the underdog wouldn't have a chance to win, I wouldn't still be playing. If I wouldn't feel like that was something that could actually happen, I would have lost interest in Glory Days boxing, but I've not felt that way at all. And even I've had some really interesting upsets. And so it teaches something about the sport, and I appreciate that. And that's why I feel like if I'm learning something and I'm being entertained, then what more could I want? And so that's why the game has clicked with me. What I like
about Glory Days boxing, that you couldn't say any better, Kurt. I think like the star system or the rating system, you sit there, you look, okay, you're matchmaking, right? Well, I think a 10-star is the best fighter. There's X amount of the great. But if an 8-star fighter can compete with a 10-star fighter, and even I've had some interesting matches with below that. Again, it all goes by the role. Just like if the guy gets in a rhythm, but that's what I like about the game. You're right. With Title Bout, no knock on it. I own the PC game with Title Bout 2. I'm just saying what I like. Even in when you see that when I'm doing my matchmaking, I'm like, for my own enjoyment, or if I'm streaming in any game, and this includes Glory Days boxing, I'm looking at, would I want to watch this fight if it happened like on TV? And I'll tell you this, and I say it over and over again: Floyd Mayweather Jr., great fighter, all-time great. I don't want to watch him. I'm not going to play him. I'm just not. I remember Anthony did a fight, and he's sitting there going, because the trade, and he had it dead on. It's the way the guy fought at that weight class. It's boring to me. But you do have, in certain games, like you said, with title bout, and it's no knock on the game. It's just that the higher the control, they really. And again, I get it; they're the better fighter. But you made a great point. You're talking just two rating point differences. Like whatever, a 10 and an 8. It's amazing. Where I think you can be competitive, have fun fights. Again, if you're matching Muhammad Ali against Eric Butterbean Ash, guess what? Ash has no chance. Except Ali, he hits Ali as he comes into the ring with a chair. But I'm saying that I just think that with Glory Days boxing, again, I go back to the flow, but you can make really nice competitive fights with a decent range of how the fighters are rated. It's just fun to do, and I think boxing is, to me, one of the funnest sports to do that with on the tabletop. That's just my opinion.
Well, and and going back, and first of all, to answer Jim L's question, I had a programmer that was working with me around the time I was designing the game. He had to step away. He has just recently come back and started to look at some stuff, really just at the beginning of this year. So hopefully that is still on track for some time in the future. Not sure how soon, but it's been worked on again. So hopefully maybe in another year or so, there's news on that. But to get to, when I started designing Glory Days boxing, the only point of reference I really had was the original title bout. And that's one thing I wanted to do, is make a variance, because things in boxing, it's not always going to be Muhammad Ali is, a 12 control factor versus an 8. So everything's going to be like this. There's different things. Fighters are better inside versus outside. Sometimes foot position or body position make a big difference. And we lost Kurt. So that's why I came up with a star system, so that sometimes Ali might roll a blank. And even if you roll 1 star or 2 star, the other fighter is going to have control or get a toe-to-toe that segment. So I wanted to do that to make number one, a variance, but again, depending on how hot the dice were, which I guess you could relate to how a training camp goes, or how focused in a fighter is. Sometimes you can have those upsets, even though one fighter is clearly better.
Highlight Hades is Rocky Super Action Boxing for ColecoVision was one of my favorite games as a kid. I had the Rocky game for Sega. It was a lot of fun. You fought Apollo Creed first, Mr. T second. What the hell was Mr. T's name? Anyway. Clubber Lane. And then you fought Drago last. And Drago, this was the formula that beat him. You had him hit him like 3 times in the body, step back a bit, he'd come to you, and then you throw your right hand. And you had to have the perfect timing, because if he hits you 2 or 3 times, you were done. But that was the fun of that. Dan Douglas says, it comes down to the booker. Yeah, how you want to book your fights. How you want to book your who do you want to play, whether you stream or not stream? Who do you want to play? What, even in baseball sims or whatever sports sim, what teams do you like? You should be playing seasons or teams that are enjoyable to you. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Roddy Parker. Kurt, you want something?
Well,
how do you do your matchmaking, Kurt?
A lot of what ifs, but I'm looking for typically stuff that's more team, or in the case of Glory Days, I'm looking for fighters that usually aren't more than 30 years apart. I like to stay within a 30, maybe 40-year window at the max. So that's first. But then I also like to feel like I'm learning something by playing contrasting styles. So I want to match up maybe a little bit different era, but a little bit different style too. So for example, tomorrow I'm doing a pocket pennant run game of the 68 Cardinals against the 60 Pirates. Two teams that were both very good, but had very different strengths. And so I want to try and when I look for a matchup like that, I like that matchup of those two teams because they're different. Their strengths weren't the same strengths, and I could feel like I'm learning something about each of them by having them do something contrary or take on an opponent contrary to their own style. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I like the when you said you pick a certain time period. One of my favorite projects. I wish I did it online. I didn't because I was doing a lot of boxing. I was like, I want to do Joe Louis against every title defense that Larry Holmes had. The ones I had in Glory Days boxing. That was a lot of fun. There were some surprises. Louis has won them all. I have a few more to do. And I was thinking about redoing it again or just the last few on the channel because I'm a big Joe Louis fan. I like Rocky Marciano and Joe Louis. I'm a big Joe Louis fan. And remember Scott Frank?
Mm-hmm. New Jersey.
Yep. He actually dropped Louis. Now, Louis ended up stopping him in 3 rounds, but I sat there and go, someone might say that's unrealistic. And I'm thinking, no, it's realistic because Louis went down a bit early in fight. And Scott Frank could hit a little bit. Not that he was good. I shouldn't say he wasn't. But
Joe Louis got knocked down by an alcoholic janitor in Tony Galento.
But then the other one, Carla Truth Williams was the only guy to go the distance so far. Cooney dropped Louis, and that helped. His trait helped him. But then Louis, that was actually fun. I think that was a 4 or 5 rounder, but that was exciting. That was fun. But it was a fun little project. Marvis Frazier got annihilated. Poor Marvis. But I went through with the fighters you could. It was fun. I think that's, and I like when I do my, I guess we call them universes. I hear people say that, so I use that now. Whether it's Glory Days or whatever game I'm using for boxing. I try not to have guys fight who really fought. That's just me, right? Then I'll do, so Marciano's the champ right now in my Glory Days boxing universe. So he's not going to fight anyone that he fought. So we take away those contenders. But this is the way I get other fighters involved. Now I sit there and go, I'm going to fight him against 70s, 80s, and 90s kind of guys. And that's fun. Like when Ali was my champ. Before Marciano beat him. He was fighting Ezra Charles, Jersey Joe. You know what I'm saying? He was fighting those guys. That's the way I do my match. Anthony, you have a really interesting, you do random debuts, regardless of what game you're playing. And I think that's very fascinating. I think I have more enjoyment. I love playing the games, especially Glory Days boxing, but the matchmaking, I sit there. And I like right here, I have cards out. And I'm like, ooh, okay, I have to be honest with you. I've played Azuma Nelson versus Barry McGuigan title bout. Barry McGuigan beat him. Now, I'm going to be honest. I always thought Azuma Nelson would win this if they ever fought. And that would have been a huge fight at featherweight. I played it 3 different game sims. And Barry McGuigan wins all the time. And I was like sitting there going, wow, again, you don't know, but it's fun. It's interesting. I don't know. I love the boxing games, and I love Glory Days boxing. I like the what if factor, and I think
one I'm really looking forward to in the new set too is these 2 guys. Because that would have
Joe Calzaghe.
made a hell of a fight in that Super 6.
That's a fun. That is, you did your own version because they had a Super 6, but you're doing your own version with actually better you use some of the ones they actually have, but you have better fight. You know, it's like
I hadn't rated Abraham, Burrell, or Taylor, so I just put 3 other guys in.
Can I ask you something? Are you surprised at the success of the first supplemental set, if I may ask?
I'm sorry?
The first supplemental set, were you surprised how many people wanted that? Because on the Facebook group page, they were very excited about the different weight classes, the junior classes. And that was something you weren't going to do at Red Bull.
Yeah, no, I really was, because I'm like, you know, I've made a couple of miscalculations in this process, but you know, I'm like, I want just to do the original 8, and I would rate some junior guys in a division up or down.
Yeah.
And I really didn't think there'd be a high demand, but there was a big demand, especially for junior welterweights. And when I started rating them, I'm like, God, I'm really doing an injustice to the game, because there's a lot of good fighters that fought primarily, you know, in the junior middleweight or junior welterweight division, and same with the super middleweights. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I just really, I kind of let my own bias, and here's where the bias comes from. I'm very much a traditionalist.
Yep.
I hate 17 world championships in every fucking weight class. I hate the fact that the alphabet, you know, controlled boxing. And so I look at it from an old school where there was one champion, you know, like it was basically the NBA.
Yep.
Champion,
National Basketball Association.
Yeah.
Either.
Yeah, not that. You know, so I let that bias influence me to kind of stick to the old school, like the old guy get off the lawn, you know. But I realized that people want those, and when I started rating, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of stupid for overlooking these. They should be in the game.
And again, I'm not like you. I asked for 2 fighters. I'm happy you did them. Joe Baxi and Gianfranco Rossi. Are they all-time greats? No. But you know what? In my mind, right, I already have my matchups. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm already very excited because I have my matchups in my mind of what I want to do. And again, I think I get as much enjoyment from the matchmaking. Because I'm like, would I want to watch this fight? You know, Arnold Hunter says, I love my Glory Days boxing playmat. That's cool.
No, he and I have that format too, but inked. I think it's inked playmats or inked inked playmats. Yeah, they did a really good job, and it's all the chart and the game board is all on one. I don't know what I guess it's like a foam rubber playmat, but yeah, it's really, really nice.
All right.
You know, I was just thinking about my tournament, and I was thinking when you were talking about matchmaking and how I thought that the Corey and Bugner fight and the Lyle and Young fight, even though Lyle and Young actually fought in real life, and I'm not huge on that either, but those were the most interesting ones because, and not like, it's not a case like I don't need to fight Lewis and Ali 15 times, you know, like that's not like, what's interesting to me are the athletes and the teams that have a flaw. And what do they do? What does that look like? How do they match up? That, because it's overcoming that, to me, that's much more interesting than, you know, plowing.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Undefeated career. I don't know.
Yeah, because to me, like, I'm like, okay, you know, Tony Galento and Primo Canera, you look at those 2 guys, whatever. But you know, if you made that fight in reality, it possibly could have made it at the Primo's career, but just say hypothetically, you made that fight, you're sort of like in their prime. You could have packed a big venue because people would have went, and you can sit there and go, oh well, that guy's not that good. That's not the point. That's not the point. You understand these guys are going to murder each other. Like, it's going to be a good fight for as long as I watched highlights of Tony Galento and Max Baer. And that would just, and again, they don't give you every second of the round because of the way it was filmed. But it was very 7-0, right?
Oh, no.
Did they score again?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Sorry.
I'm not liking this game.
I'm not liking this game either. I just told everyone that the Patriots would win this week and lose next week. Get on the phone with Belichick. Tell him I'm pissed.
Yeah.
Well, here's what's funny. Galento, personality-wise, was like the Tyson Fury of his time.
Yeah.
He was a very colorful personality, and you know, like he said, he habitually finished training camp by draining the beer at his local favorite tavern. You know?
Absolutely. But
guys,
here,
I can see Anthony's lips move, but I can't hear him. My audio is just completely messed up. So I'm going to jump off here.
okay. I'm sorry, Kurt. You don't.
We'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thank you for being on, Kurt.
Yeah, appreciate it.
We did have audio issues, and it was tough. He's coming from an undisclosed location in Colombia.
Parts unknown.
Yeah, parts unknown. Oh, that was my favorite thing from wrestling. Oh, what? How? Listen, I know you're doing the football. It's almost done. Hats off. And baseball, your love. You know, one of your big love. Wrestling. When's that come?
Oh, for sure. I don't know when, but and the thing that's going to be fun about wrestling is the Glory Days boxing format in terms of fight flow translates very well to wrestling.
Absolutely. That's why I'm very excited.
There'll be some changes, like it'll be obviously, you know, there's no punches, but it will be a kind of fatigue system, or I guess an energy system, for lack of better words. But yeah. I think it translates very well. So I'm excited to look at doing that. The one thing with me is I watch AEW, you know, which
you have your bias towards what you like.
It's pretty decent, but I'm definitely prejudiced against 80s wrestling, the territory days, for sure. You know,
you mean you like that, the territory?
I love that, and that's you know, because there's kind of a beauty to kayfabe inside your heart. You knew these guys, they can't punish each other this way and not be bruised up and cut. But it was still, it's like a getaway. You go to suspend your sense of belief, and it's enjoyable.
It is enjoyable,
bad, you know.
So, because I had posted some stuff with a couple of different wrestling games on the Facebook groups, and they're like, "Why do you play this? It's fake." So my response was, "Everything's fake. It's a game, but it's fun. I do it like it was real, but I still do it like a promotional thing, like, you know, things I'd like to see. The way, and I have my own crazy storylines in my head, and it's like everything I want wrestling. It's tough to watch wrestling. The only guy I can watch on occasion, because I really do like him, and he would have fit in any territory, any era. I mean, well, you had to put him the right. I love Roman Reigns. I can listen to him talk. I think he does a lot of his own stuff, I think.
Have you ever watched an MJF promo?
You know, I watch a lot of YouTubers who talk about wrestling, but I gotta watch him because everyone says he's outstanding.
I'll tell you what, MJF you could have dropped him literally into any territory and he would have been the premier heel. He's as good on the mic as guys like Piper and you know.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, easily. And
is he in AEW?
He's in AEW, and here, the wrestling I like in AEW is more the ground based. I don't like watching the Young Bucks and
they do too much high flying stuff. It's too much.
Yeah, but there's MJF is good. Obviously CM Punk's there and Daniel Bryan, and so they do some good actual fight-based type wrestling versus the gymnastics piece, and it's very entertaining.
I'll tell you what.
And you know who Taz is, right?
Yes, he was. Yes,
his son Hook has had like 3 matches. Holy shit, the kid is phenomenal because he's got a judo background, so he's legit.
Yeah.
And his stuff looks so good. And, you know, so there's some good old school type wrestling you can see.
I'll tell you, I agree. I don't watch a lot of wrestling anymore, but I agree a little bit. I agree with what I've seen with AEW. And I have my faults with the AEW, and I'll go over them real quick because I like wrestling talk. And I don't get to talk because Nurse Teresa's like, stop talking wrestling to me because she's like, I don't know it. AEW gives you finishes, not DQs or countouts. I do like that about AEW. I hated constant countouts, constant DQs. I don't like that. And I know they did that some in the old days, but it was to build a storyline. I kind of got that. The one thing I will say about the Young Bucks, they need to get away. And again, no one's going to listen to me. For any of those wrestlers, that type of, you can't do all the high flying stuff because it just takes away from all the high flying stuff. And when people are in the stands going, this is amazing, or whatever they say, right? They're conditioned to say that. They don't mean it. Go back and watch an old wrestling match from whatever. And I'm not saying they're all great. I'm not saying all the Bruno Sammartino matches or whoever you want to pick are great. But like when the fans got into it, like just look at some old superstar Billy Graham matches against Dusty Rhodes. You can find 2 of them from Madison Square Garden on YouTube. The fan, and again, it's kayfabe. I get that, but you have to understand, the fans are really into it. It's not that they're conditioned to say something; they're into it.
I listened to Jim Cornette's podcast, and
I do too.
You know, I mean, the heat was real. I mean, people trying to stab you, and
yeah,
and if you go on YouTube and look at the Ox Baker riot in Cleveland, you know, literally people were trying to get at him and kill him because he was giving Ernie Ladd heart punches. You know, and it's phenomenal the way they could work the crowd and manipulate people.
Bears Den says now Daniel Bryan is back to Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, he's a good worker.
Yeah.
And there's some good young talent, and what AEW did that was very smart is they brought in some you know, some veterans like Punk and Danielson who know the wrestling industry, not just what cool moves can I do, you know.
Because I've watched some AEW on YouTube, right? And I've said, wow, that's a fun match. And then like someone posted a pay-per-view from 2 years or whatever. I don't know. Because again, it's new to me. So I'm watching. I was like, wow, that match is good. And then they do. And I watched actually a Young Bucks match. Made a lot of sense what they did. The problem is too many false finishes. They did a lot of high flying stuff in this one I saw. And I was like, oh, okay, they're not that bad. And then I watched more of their stuff. And like, okay, now I know what people are talking about. This is way too, it's too, God bless them. They're making money. But I'm saying, here's another thing, Anthony. When we're whatever, and it's fake. I get wrestling. I knew 9 years old, whatever. I realized.
And I like to say choreographed because they take
legit
punishment. For
sure.
They
do. Here's the thing. False finishes. Here's what I would do if I was running a wrestling thing. If someone has like their finishing hold, whatever it is, DDT, whatever, bulldog this or the snap. Once that's down, the guy's done. Unless he's an incredible, you know, you got guys. I listened to Diamond Dallas Page when he goes, the day they ruined my career was when they I forgot who it was. No one had ever gotten out of my diamond. You know, he hits it. That's the finishing move. And he had said, Diamond Dallas Page had said I was in WCW, he goes, why don't you just let him block my move or something and beat me? Don't let him kick out of my move. He goes, they ruined me. And I find the business of wrestling more interesting. Like it's so interesting to listen to these guys talk about it. Yeah. It's just the craziness, like the shooters, like old school, like they would bring someone in if they really wanted to take care of someone in the territory because they were just being numbnuts. Like, okay, we'll bring in a shooter. That means someone who can legitimately kick your ass, and you're going to do what we say, or this guy's legitimately going to hurt you.
Like shit, less. Dang it. Shorter guy.
I know you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
I just can't think of his name.
You know, but they'd have guys like that were shooters that, you know, and even with champions, they would try and put the belt on someone who could legitimately shoot so that
in case someone did back
double cross them. Yeah.
That's the Anthony. I didn't know any of this stuff till I started watching these YouTube. Then I wanted to know more again because I'm sitting there going, this is fat. The business of it. Now it's it was always entertainment, but the business of it.
Well, that's why, that's why like guys like Bob Backlund and Harley Race, they could legit wrestle. And really the only guy that couldn't handle himself in a shoot that had the belt for any long-term run was Ric Flair. And they talk about that. Ric Flair, the NWA champion, was a grueling job. You had to.
Oh, I know that the schedule was incredible for anyone.
Incredibly grueling.
I just listened
people didn't want to do it, and Flair liked doing it.
Yeah, because Jim Cornette was saying, I don't remember what podcast. I listened to so many different ones. I listened to him on YouTube though, right? And he was saying everyone wanted to be champ, and then when they got it, they wanted to lose the belt because they're like, I don't want it. Because Rick, again, regardless of what you think of Ric Flair, I always enjoyed his matches. I don't like things he said about other wrestlers at times because I just think he's wrong. But it was he gave the schedule. It was crazy. But something in my hand.
So sometimes wrestling twice a day too.
They did the thing where what the hell is that on my head? There we got it. Where you're right, he wrestled one town, and then they drive or they flew, I forgot. And they went and they wrestled that in the afternoon one place, at night another place. I still watch a little bit of wrestling. I hope I'd like to see just a little less of the high. Anthony, when you see the guy catching the guy, right? There's no need to do that. I mean, don't even do that move. It looks horrible. And I know people go, because I've watched the fans say, this is great. They're conditioned to say that.
It's like when a guy is climbing to the top ropes and someone's outside just waiting.
Yeah.
You have to have a little bit of realism in there where in a situation like that, am I going to wait for him to jump? No, I'm going to move. So, and I get it's part of wrestling now. They show off their athleticism, but I still like, again, watching some of the guys like Danielson work and Punk and MJF.
I'll tell you, I like Cesaro. I can't remember. I can't remember his real name, but I enjoyed him working.
Who?
Cesaro. He has another name. He was in the WWE. I don't know where the hell he wrestles now. He has a thing where he swings the guy in the middle of the ring. It just goes around and people start counting. It's kind of interesting.
And I haven't watched WWE for probably 20 years.
Roman Reigns, I like. I like Roman Reigns. Anyway, so your wrestling game when it comes out, will it be in territorial sets, or do you not know? Or are you going to have? My plan. That's my tentative plan. Is first of all, I really discovered pro wrestling when I was in the military down in Georgia. So that's going to be the first set in the game. And so I'll probably do a couple of territories in each release. So like Georgia and Mid-South, and then WCCW, Texas with the Von Erichs, and, Memphis with Lawler and stuff like that. So, yeah, I would probably do a couple of territories in each set. So... So again, Memphis wrestling I didn't see a lot of because that just wasn't something. But I've seen it on YouTube now. They had some crazy fan base with that. The whole thing with oh Jesus, the actor Andy Kaufman. That is one you can find that documentary on YouTube. Someone did it. I think it's actually a YouTuber who did the documentary. Yeah. That is. When Jerry Lawler sits there and goes, I didn't hurt him. And because now Jerry Lawler wasn't even in. I mean, he's in on it, but he wasn't in on that part. He's going, he thinks he's really going to get sued. He goes, what? This guy's nuts. He goes, he calls me 2 days later from the hospital. He goes, we got him. We got him hooked. He goes, I know I closed my, like not to hurt him. And he's like, you broke my neck. That was one of the funniest. Was that the best? What's the wording I'm looking for? Did they pull that off, or did they pull that? Where remember he would come down and say, "I will beat any of you, fat, ugly," or whatever you say. Like he would challenge women to come in the ring.
Yeah. It was one of the best angles or words.
That's it, angles. It was unbelievable.
But, have you seen when they were on David Letterman? Have you seen Uncensored?
No, that I've not seen.
You have to watch it
to try to find
uncensored because it doesn't bleep out all of Kaufman cursing him out. It's hilarious. But
He used
Letterman was so uncomfortable while that was going on because he didn't know.
Yeah, well, he didn't break care. He didn't. I mean, he knew how to piss those people off in Memphis. He'd get there and he goes, "I am a popular actor." I'm paraphrasing. I don't have it all right, but he basically go, "If you boo me, I will sue each and every one." He was just pissing them off constantly.
And Lawler talked about when they went on the show, they didn't really plan what they were going to do.
Right.
You know, when he slapped him,
Yeah.
He said he stood up and he said they just exchanged looks, and he's like, "Oh, he wants me to slap him," so he slapped the shit out of him, knocked him off of his chair.
And Kaufman loved it. He was a big wrestling fan. He loved that stuff. That has to be one of the all-time greatest angles ever because
it really is. And like Dan says, it's much more appreciated now than it was back in the day, you know, where,
Yeah. Because that guy had no athletic ability, most likely. He loved wrestling. He would take a bump. It was just amazing. I watched that documentary a couple, and then I watched it's incredible. It was just, and I think, I know wrestling was fake and this and that, but to sit there and say for a brief second, and we knew that was fake too, but they had people going. He said, Andy Kaufman's parents hated me for years until when Andy Kaufman, and he died very young, but he told them a few months into it, he goes, no, this is all, we're having fun with it, because they thought I was legitimately trying to kill their son. I don't know.
You said you watched Dark Side of the Ring.
Yes, I think that's what I watched something that he talked about it. And it was awesome.
Yeah, no, there's some excellent, and wrestling is full of a lot of insane, crazy, sad, tragic stuff too.
Absolutely. So here's my point, just because I can talk wrestling. It's not so much the matches, which again, they get hurt in any era, and especially you can still get hurt now. People, the stuff they do is not, they're athletic. You can't say they're not athletic, and I'm not I just don't like the way they go about to get their result, because it, like Anthony said, there has to be a little bit. Yes, we all know it's fake, especially now, but like a movie, you can go over the top of it, but you want a little believability, and there's just not a lot of it's not believability. But with the thing with wrestling, the business, the back, it's fascinating to me. I will listen to podcasts after podcast. People talking about the business aspect of it. One of the most fascinating stories to me still is when they went to Bruno Sammartino that night. You're going to win the title. Okay. He goes, does Rogers know? Because they didn't like each other, right? He goes, does Rogers know I'm going to win the title? They go, no, we're going to tell him before the match. He goes, okay. And the guy, I want to say his name was Toots Short something. Toots something.
Toots Mond is one of the bookers,
Yeah, one of the bookers, sorry. He goes, and he hated Rogers because there's a term called hot shotting where you bring all your friends in, it pumps up the gate, but you don't build anybody else up, right? And then they leave. When things start to go and they go to the next territory and they kind of do the same thing. So that's what they kind of did in the new because they were NWA at one point. They broke away. And again, you can look up the history of it. But the point is, Rogers didn't know until, they say you're going to lose it. And he goes, what if he doesn't let me win? Or, go along with it. He goes, and this guy hated. Vince Sr. liked Buddy Rogers. This guy hated him. He goes, I don't care if you break his leg, his neck. I don't care. He goes, you can shoot on him for all we care. We know you can beat him in a legit fight. He goes, okay. Now, the only thing why I take that going, what interests me was, why would you have this big wrestling match and you ended it in 43 seconds? Because they told Rogers, and again, I just take it from what the people are saying. Bruno says they told Rogers. He goes, me and Rogers didn't get along because he tried to hurt me in Toronto or something. And so he goes, normally I would turn my back and I'd do, the genuflect and make a prayer. And this. He goes, I didn't do that this time. I remembered what Toots said. He goes, just win. He goes, I went right at him. I put him in the corner. I said, we could do this the easy way or the hard way. He tried to resist. I hit him. I put him in the back breaker. And 43 seconds later, he goes, you better submit. I'll break your back. I mean, that was just, it's just an interesting story. I'm sitting there going, there's a better story, but I can't remember the wrestlers because it was older, right, Anthony? There was, they said, God, it was like a NWA territory. And they had a shooter that never won the title because it was tough to work with him. And they were afraid to put him in a title match because none of the territories had anyone who they thought could legitimately beat the guy. I just watched, they were talking to you, someone talked about AWA, Vern Gagne. I did not I mean, I knew he was a good wrestler, but I didn't realize he was doing TV commercials in the 50s.
Oh, yeah.
As a, he was making a ton of money. And it was funny because they always wanted someone who could actually defend them, like in case someone tried to backstab or double cross. But I look forward to I wish they had the territories again. And again, I didn't understand any of that stuff because when I was a kid, we got WWF. That's what we got.
Well, they kept it fresh because you'd have a constant influx of talent, and you couldn't do it now because of the internet. Everyone would know, but
right.
It was cool when all of a sudden Bruiser Brody came in, and with his maniacal act, and Abdullah the Butcher made a living. He'd go to territories and he'd only stay for a few weeks, but he was such a monster heel and so brutal that they'd go in and they'd give their baby faces a rub off of him, and so yeah, the territories were just awesome in terms of wrestling. And,
I heard the same thing. I heard the same thing, Bud W. That Haku was like, Harley Race was another dude you didn't want to mess with. Harley Race.
There is nobody that says, Haku was not one of the toughest guys. And believe it or not, like people say, Tracy Smothers, who didn't look like much, but was a legit tough guy that you just didn't want to mess with.
Yeah. Again, one of my other favorite ones was Dan Spivey and Adrian Adonis. That story I can listen to all the time when they got into that fight in Spivey. That was wow. But there was something to be said. It was. I'll tell you when I started liking wrestling again. It's going to sound silly because a lot of you guys saw this wrestling and I didn't. You have to understand where I grew up in the Northeast. We didn't see this stuff. So the first time I saw, I want to say Texas wrestling. It's where the Von Erichs were.
Yeah, WCCW.
Yeah, that's what it was, right? And I'm sitting there going, and I saw the Freebirds. And I was like, wow, I like this stuff. And then I saw the Von Erichs. I wasn't a big Von. They were all right. I actually liked the Freebirds. But then I got to see this different style of more action type of wrestling, where WWF, they had action. Those guys were tough, but they were more like story, more like. The working was different. The working was different.
WCCW, they worked a lot stiffer. They really did.
And I really liked that. And the AEW was similar where I guess it was a little stiffer too there, but a lot of wrestling, technical wrestling. But again, then I fell away from wrestling, and it's going to sound really silly. TBS had the old style type of Saturday wrestling show, but it came on. Those weird TBS times. Like it came on from like 5:15 and it went to 8:15. And I'm sitting there going, and they were all mid-level kind of guys. So I'm sitting there. It was actually sometimes you couldn't even figure out who was going to win the match, right? Which made it fun. And that's where Goldberg started, and he just started annihilating people on Saturdays. It was hilarious. I'm sitting there going, they got something for this guy. Another good one. If you watch the match with Lord, what the hell's that guy? William Regal. Yes, William Regal. You can actually find the Goldberg match where there's like some controversy there because they said they wanted to, extend him a little bit. And people I guess he ended up getting fired from WCW for that because he said, all I did was do what they told me. And they were like, you exposed him. Why the hell did you do that? But I watched the match. It was a fun match to watch, and he loses like he's supposed to. I don't think he did anything. No,
Regal was a legit tough guy too.
Yeah, like he could have been a shooter if he wanted. Because I watched, like Goldberg would try to do something, and yeah, it wasn't as the way I read it in the podcast said because I wanted to see that. The one last thing I'll talk about wrestling, I'll shut the hell up. There was were they called the Fantastics?
There was the Fabulous Ones. They were
That's
Steve
it.
Kerr and Stan Lane.
That's it.
Yeah.
Their story with the Road Warriors, that alone, find that on YouTube. First, find the interviews about them talking about them and the Road Warriors, and then go watch the matches, because you can find the match in Chicago. No, not in Chicago. Where the hell? They're Minneapolis. I'm sorry. And that's where the Road Warriors were really from, because they were bouncers or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they worked very stiff because they didn't know what they were doing. And they were supposed to lose to Stan Lane and Kern, and they didn't want to lose. And they go, we're not doing it. So what do you mean you're not doing it? This is in the ring. In the ring, there's like the guy says, we're not doing it. And so they kind of have, again, when you hear them talk, they're saying like it's a real sort of, at times, a real fight. You watch it, they're still being sort of professional. But one of the Road Warriors, I can't remember which one, kept picking up Kern and slamming him harder and harder on, the power slams. And Kern, they're old guys now, but they're fun to listen to, right? He goes, sometimes you can't beat someone physically, but you can outsmart them. He goes, well, okay, we're going to play this way, all right? He goes, I go outside, I get a chair, and I come flying back, a little later. He comes flying back in the ring, and he goes, they knew I meant business because I was hitting them with the edge of the chair, not with the and he goes, because they're going to hurt, they're trying to hurt us. So they go through the thing, and the guy's trying to, he goes, I know if he gets a chair away from me, he's going to beat the hell out of me, but I'm not letting him. So we get DQ'd, but we go over with the fans. That's where we're at. And Vern Gagne went nuts. He goes, that's not the way it's supposed to go. And he goes, go talk to them. It's a great little, I'm not even saying documentary. It was an interview. I don't know on what YouTube podcast. And then something happened in Puerto Rico, which was hilarious. That was even better. Just check it out. That was so. Anthony, so Anthony, we'll finish up here because I'll talk wrestling all night. So we have the supplemental set is going to be out next week.
Yeah, that's ready to go now. I'm just waiting for Joe to confirm he's put it up on the website. So as soon as he does, it'll be ready to go.
That's PDF. And then when the PDF goes live, you can buy, if you want, printed copies.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
If you don't know about Glory Days Boxing, I put it in the chat at the top and on the page. Purchase at sidelinestrategies.com. Your football game is going to be coming out this year. That's college football. Mm-hmm. And you can check that out. Gameplay on Bleacher Bums Gaming. Also on the page and in the chat, a link to Anthony's channel. Kurt Bergland was here earlier. We did have some technical difficulties with Kurt's audio throughout the program. But you know what? I'm not making it. And he left after on his own volition. I feel bad about that. But we'll work that out again. And
yeah, he's in paradise, so we can't feel too bad.
Yeah, I'm not feeling too bad. We got like -1 outside here, and he's in 81-degree weather.
Yeah.
So, tell us going out about your channel again, and Bleacher Bums Gaming, and Glory Days Boxing, and Glory Days Sports Universe, as I like to call it.
Yeah, we've got, and we actually didn't talk about it. I mean,
we can talk about it now. Let's talk about it.
The Boxing Set will have 1,100 fighters now.
That's incredible.
And I'll probably only do one more set of 100 for the boxing game. I want to put out some free stuff for it later on this year for like doing careers and stuff like that. There's already some free stuff that kind of relates to that, but do more of that. And then, once I get 1,200 fighters out, what's up, Phil? We'll, Andy Scott, we'll move on to other stuff. College football season's to rate. I've got the baseball game fully designed that the price point's not going to be what I want, but I'm actually working with Kurt on another baseball game that more resembles Pocket Pennant Run. And I'm sorry for the dogs, people.
No, that's all right. I like hearing Duke and Daisy.
They like to shoot fireworks off at odd hours. But
oh, really? Poor dogs.
But it's kind of like Pocket Pennant Run, but a little bit more player detail specific, if that makes sense. But similar style with a small footprint and a team card. And I won't lie, I took inspiration from Pocket Pennant Run, but I wanted to do something more detailed and more less generic in terms of stat generation. So I'm working on that with Kurt and, finalizing some things for that. So that will probably come out after the college football game, before the regular baseball game does. But yeah, keeping busy and, doing as much as can, and probably will devote more time to that because I think I'm actually finally going to retire totally from coaching high school football.
Well, congrats on that. That's got to be a sad decision, though. I mean, you know what I mean? Not sad. That's not the right word, but
it is. But I look at it this way. I mean, I've done it 34 years, and it's brought me a lot of joy, given me more than I've given it, and then given me a chance to work with incredible young men from different aspects of different communities, and so it's. I'm satisfied, so I have no problem if I'm going to walk away and doing it and focus on other stuff.
Well, thank you very much. We stayed on a lot longer than I thought, but I was enjoying it. Thank you to Kurt, if you're still watching. And again, we had some technical difficulties. People, there's crunchy or whatever sounds. It happens sometimes. You know what? It was still a very fun show. Roger Ward wants to say hello. Hello, Roger.
Hey, Roger.
Phil Daniels was here. So D. Scott Howard and a lot. And we had What's Blazing in Sports, our good friend T-Dub. Thank you very much, everyone. It was a fun. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you for a great game, Glory Days Boxing. I look forward to your college football game, your baseball game. Look forward to wrestling. I look forward to the territories. That's going to be a lot of fun. One more question on the wrestling down the line. What do you think your initial number of wrestlers? Because it's interesting. I always thought there were a lot of different wrestlers and territories, but then when you again, just me listening to stuff on YouTube that you didn't want to have too many, but you had to have enough, and then you would bring people in to supplement. So, 25 or I'm just not.
Well, honestly, because there'll be jobbers in there too.
Yep.
I don't have to look. I plan, like I said, I plan on doing two territories at a time. And I think I'd be able to scrape 50 wrestlers per territory.
Oh, that's cool.
With
that's
jobbers and stuff. So hopefully 100. If that's not going to work out, I'll make it 50, but no less than 50.
Awesome. That's great. Because I like a variety of stuff, as you know. And will you have manager cards? Because managers are a big part of wrestling.
Yeah. No, and they'll be included. I'm thinking of, I'll definitely have something for angles and feuds in there. Cool. That'll be a little extra. So yeah, that'll all be part of it. And that feud piece will probably take the part or the place of the event chart in Glory Days Boxing. So there'll be charts there for feuds and angles on TV shows and stuff like that too.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. It was fun. We were on a little earlier. We only swore a few times. That's pretty good. I like to swear. I swore a few times, and Anthony swore a few. Kurt, always the educator, never swore. God bless him. But thank you very much. I hope everyone enjoyed the chat. And we had a fun time. And you have to understand how nice it is to have someone who makes a game, a successful game, will come on. We'll talk with the people in the chat. Anthony, I greatly appreciate it. I know everyone in the community greatly appreciates it. You're out here, you're discussing the games. Hell, you've discussed other people's games. You did a video on another game. I actually went on because I'm on part of that Facebook group page. I said that is unbelievably nice that someone who also makes games did that. And I just want to say, I hope you know how nice that is. And the person did say, yes, I know that's really. So. Yeah,
no, and we're not competitors. It's not like we're EA Sports and, No,
but I'm just saying, it's just, to me, that's you're a class act. You are a class act. So
I appreciate that. But I think we're all one community, and it's like, when something else is good, promote it, Yep. I mean, I think you have to be secure in what you put out and also be able to recognize other good stuff out, like, Gary Brown's Legends of Boxing. Yep. Computer game is awesome. Love
it. It is very fun. I enjoy it. I look forward to your computer game. There's a couple of things I'll share with you at some point when you're ready, but make sure we can roll our own dice, because that's just
for sure
a lot of fun. So excellent. Again, thank you, everybody. We had a nice crowd here for a long time. Greatly appreciate it. Remember, Glory Days Boxing, SidelineStrategies.com. Link in the chat on the page. Check out Anthony's channel, Bleacher Bums Gaming. Check out Kurt Bergland's YouTube channel. Link in the chat and on the page. Subscribe to one another. Check out all the wonderful content creators in our community, because all of you make each and every day a little better for yourselves and everyone else. I enjoy everyone's content, whether you post it on Facebook or wherever, or you do it on YouTube. I enjoy it all. So thank you very much. Health and happiness. God bless. Till next time, take care. Bye-bye. Peace. See you soon.